The pension system in Nigeria, like many administrative systems, is an offshoot of the colonial era. The ordinance provides public servants with both pension and gratuity. It has also undergone a number of reforms in a bid to be at par with global best practices. I am Agadamba Margaret, and this is Pension Affairs, where we set your mind at ease on the subject. Welcome. As our society becomes urbanized, we are quickly coming to terms with the fact that our traditional African extended family system, which cared for the elderly, is gradually being eroded. A quick look at statistics also shows that the private sector has become the largest employer of labor after government. And then, of course, an appraisal of a typical Nigerian pensioner leaves much to be desired, especially among the young workforce. It therefore becomes pertinent that we begin conversations around our retirements, either for our own sakes, for those of our parents, or for the future. But before we bring in our guests to talk to us on this, let's go to the streets to find out what Nigerians know on the subject. We'll be right back.
Pension is the amount they pay you when you are old and you are no more working.
Pension is a reward given to somebody who has worked for the government or private sector for about stipulated years. You know, government is about, say, 35 years. Then private sectors, I don't know whether they follow government rule.
After about 35 years or so, the pension that is being deducted monthly from your salary, at the end of the day, with the government pay added to it or the company added to it, that's the pension, your service here that you collect. The private is just one-time payoff, not like the government system, whereby at least monthly after you left the service, you still be collecting stipends monthly.
Nigerian pension system is very, very poor. My father is a pensioner before he died. You ask a pensioner from Lagos to travel all the way to Abuja because he wants to do one verification or the other is nonsense. To me, it's nonsense. Understand? The money is not coming at when it's supposed to come. People don't take their pay. As old as they are, you see every day they go on verification, 1-2 people will slump. You know, this is not what we should subject our elderly to on retirement.
The pension system in Nigeria is nothing to write home about. You can see our retirees, struggling even at their old age before they can, be able to collect their pension. It's not a good thing. It's nothing to write home about. The system is too worrisome. It's bad. And I implore the government to improve on it.
Nigerians, after working, there's no reward. For you to collect that reward, you have to suffer. Suffer more than you have suffered when you were working. That is it. That's how Nigerian pay. It's not. Sometimes they don't even get it. Somebody will remain going. They'll be calling you up and down. Come. You go. You come. Sometimes they're calling people who are in crutches and in wheelchairs. They go there. Sometimes some of them die, and the pension is gone. For the children to collect their pension, how? It's not easy.
The way it is now, I'm not comfortable with it. Because you have to understand that once you are 80, they're no more paying you. So many people are 80 and are still alive, and 90 they are still alive. With what do you expect them to feed?
Well, I know of where I worked. They are sincere, they are genuine, they are paying us. But the government workers, I hear them complaining that they don't pay them. So I don't know how far true, because I didn't work in the ministry. I worked in the bank.
Welcome back. This is Pension Affairs, and we have to talk with us here in the studio today, Oluwatoyin Eleoramo. He is the executive chairman of Platinum Anchorage. He retired only a year ago as the managing director of Nigerian Life and Provident Company. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, my brother.
You spent 35 years in the pension sector. And so I will believe that you are in a very good position to take us to the very beginnings of pension in Nigeria.
If we come to the beginning of the former pension system that we have today, it actually started with the colonial masters. It is the British government that colonized this country.
Okay.
They have many of their colonial workers in the system and then brought the type of pension that they had in the UK to also cover their staff here so that when they retire and go home or they are recalled back home, they will easily fix into their pension system.
Okay.
And of course, in order not to discriminate too badly, of course, there were discrimination in those days. The Nigerian workers too in the system were also covered by such pension schemes. And so when we had independence, what we have was exactly the type of pension system that the British government had at that time.
Okay.
Those are the things we can talk about as the beginning. After independence, in addition to what you have for the civil servants at that time, we have what we call the Provident Fund, which was meant to cover the private sector. People were asked to contribute a given percentage. At that time, the type of system which government had was called a pay-as-you-go. In other words, government believed that when people retire, you can always tax the workforce coming behind them and pay their pension as you go. And it worked fine. That was largely what you had in the entire Europe at that time. And it worked fine for them. I think those are the things you can talk about at the beginning of pension. Not only that, when we talk now, I'm sure you will come to pension reform later.
Sure, I'll get there.
People say it's a new pension scheme. There is no such thing as new pension scheme. It's a contributory pension scheme. And that was what was available at that time. What I have just said covered the civil service, that is those working for government.
Yes,
there was also the private sector, which was largely using the contributory system, which we have today, that we now call new pension scheme. It's not new.
Not entirely new.
It's not new. It's reform. Of course, there were a few reformations that were done. You have employers contribute, employees contribute.
Yeah, quota.
And the vehicle which was used at that time, or the investors at that time, was the insurance companies. It was the insurance industry that was used to fund those pensions, particularly for the private sector. It was purely an endowment system, and when an employee retires, unlike the civil service, he's given a lump sum. That is the total sum of his contributions and those of his employers are given to him. Of course, I don't need to tell you that there were dangers in this, which the new pension reform has
tried to address.
Exactly.
We'll get there. So from what you said, pension just happened on us in Nigeria. It's not as if we went out to begin a pension system. It's a fallout from the colonial system.
Yeah. Yes,
yes. So it's by accident that we have a pension system already.
I'm not sure it's by accident. Like I said, even in the traditional forms,
system,
I mean, people
the formal
had
pension.
A formal pension. Yes. Was from the colonial masters.
Okay.
Yes, we have it.
So these days, when you talk about pensions, people keep making references to the reforms, and the one that keeps ringing the bell is the 2004 reforms. So what has really changed?
A lot of things have changed, but let me also re-emphasize that it's not new. No, I mean, the entire pension system, the contributory pension scheme is not new. But security, for instance, have become much better. The past, it was easy for charlatans to just take away people's money, contributions. So there were incidences of default in those days. People were not able to pay very well, and those was. But the security of what you have today, because of the introduction of what you call the custodians, has become very, very good. Anybody who contributes today can be too sure that his or her funds are very, very safe. The other thing that has changed is that the advent of ICT, that is information, has been used very highly. As we speak, any of the pension fund administrators are monitored almost by seconds in Abuja, what they do and what they didn't do. So it's virtually impossible for any of the managers of these funds to toy with the funds.
Okay.
The funds are completely separated from the funds of the owner companies,
Okay.
and they are managed both by the custodians and the PFAs. So that makes it much safer, much safer.
Okay.
And the ICT things, the records are kept better, and you can't lose records because there are places where they keep counterpart records, data, and so on. So quite a number of things are those that have changed.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any plans of any reforms in sight at all as amendments or something to this 2004?
No, they've made some amendments.
Okay.
After the 2004.
They've made amendments.
PENCOM has come with some amendments.
Okay.
And I think they will, from time to time, they
Keep
make
reviewing.
regulations, and it's working.
It can only get better.
Yes, it will get better, hopefully.
Okay. So looking at the 2019 Global Retirement Index, we weighed against 4 indices, which are finance in retirement, quality of life, health, and material well-being. When you look at the typical Nigerian worker or retiree, does it offer anything?
It will depend on the way you look at it.
Okay.
When you look at the Nigerian population, for instance, like talking about what is the lifespan, you find that today the UNO statistics will put it at below 50. But then we have segments of the society that lives perfectly equal to what it is in the UK. If you take bankers, teachers, oil workers, and so on, for instance, they will have lifespans that is very close to what you have. But when you mix the entire population together, then of course you are talking about different things. So, and I think that the same thing will go for these questions that you have asked now.
Asked about the index
ask about the well-being of workers at old age. I have just told you, those who have anything prepared for their old age is just about 15%. And what they have prepared for their old age today is nothing to write home about.
Subject to inflation and all of that.
Well, inflation will always be there, but most of the workers have moved from one place to the other. Of course, government is trying to pay their food rights. But even when you combine all those together, they are hardly enough to provide what you can have as good financial means at old age, well-being. So in terms of what you are saying, certainly Nigeria has not got a place. Of course, you look at the index, it's not one of the first 25.
No, we're not there at all.
We're not there at all.
Yes.
And we're a long way to do. Countries that have what you can, a very good system that you can say, not very good, good system, acceptable system, work on mostly the what we call the 3-pillar system. A social security kind of system that has 3 pillars: the employee, the employer, and government.
Okay.
Nigeria is, the 15% only have employer and employee. The entire 85% have nothing.
Okay.
Have nothing. No government provision at all. So you can't talk about a good welfare system. Unfortunately, our cultural dispositions are not helping these matters.
Okay.
The Nigerians, I'm not sure, I've given lectures here and there trying to tell people, you meet a roadside mechanic or an exit surveyor or a lawyer, for instance, and talk to him about old age. He keeps thinking he will have a big money someday along the line, the money that never comes, and suddenly he sees himself, he's 60.
Yeah.
And no provision for anything. In many of the cases, there is no shelter, and old age creeps in.
Healthcare issues also come up. Yeah.
And in many cases, you see how many of them who have children in schools.
Yeah.
So by the time all these things come on and impinge on their systems, many of them, your guess is
situations become very pathetic.
So we are really not there. Okay. And the economy can't even fund a 3-pillar system today. It cannot.
So there's still much work to be done.
A lot of work to be done. If you ask me, But something should start. Keep telling government, it's not, there's no rocket science. Employees or citizens of the country can be encouraged. Let's have a ministry. It's enough to have a ministry for old age of people,
Okay.
to educate people what they can do.
Don't you think the National Orientation Agency should address that?
Yeah, I'm not. You see, that is not given enough emphasis. If you say it's the National Orientation Agency that should do it, you think it's just an aspect of its assignment. Let's have a pension ministry, or at least a department that is saddled with that responsibility, that goes out and looks at the all spheres. How do we encourage citizens to make provisions for their old age? How do we help them? Encouragement can be in form of tax, in form of what you provide for them. There are quite a number of things you can do to really encourage citizens to start providing. It's a long period, and people start to, if for instance, students start to save for their old age from their university days, as it's done in many countries. By the time you have done that for 15, 20 years, you have something that is good.
Sure.
This is the kind of encouragement I'm really talking about. And it's really an emergency, and it should be done this way.
Well, they seem to be doing a lot themselves at PENCOM, because no week goes without us having one news item or the other regarding pension. So on that note, I'll quickly like you to react to a couple of these news headlines. A couple of them that came in today. It says the Guardian newspaper reported that PENCOM strives to make housing affordable to pension contributors. How many pensioners can we make affordable housing for?
Yeah, I think one of the greatest things that PENCOM has been doing is to stand against some of the things that people want outside about the pension money. Each time you talk about pension money, one government official or a National Assembly member, there's big money, let us spend. I think they have stood against all these frivolous spendings. And until now, I've been a director of the PFA until last year when I retired. They made sure that these monies are not just invested or spent in places that will frizzle away the money. But I think what they're thinking about now is that there will be an instrument that makes it possible for them to be able to invest part of the money in mortgage banks.
They're doing that already, yes.
So that, no, I'm not sure. I think you just want to start. I'm not sure. There are mortgage banks, but they have not worked.
They put some in bonds and all of that.
When you put things in bond, it doesn't help you build houses. People will then come and say there are 10 trillion in the pension fund. But more than 60% of it are already in treasury bills, which government has taken away. So it's not as it looks outside. But I think to answer your question directly, yes, I think they are discussing very seriously to ensure that in a way that it will not just take away all this money, but contributors will be able to use part of their fund to build houses, because housing also is part of old age requirements that anybody must have.
Thank you. We have another one coming from The Punch. It says PENCOM to increase retirees' pension this month.
Well, I don't know the way they could go about it in many ways, but there are two options. When you are retiring, the law allows that 50% of your total contributions and investment should be given to you and paid periodically. That's what we call pension systematic payments. It can come in form of an annuity or a planned program withdrawal. The planned program withdrawal is designed by PENCOM as a template in which you have, there's no mortality elements in it. Mortality has to do with life expectancy.
Sure.
So that, I think, is what the PENCOM Director General is referring to. If you toil with the underlying rate of interest, you can go up or down on what you pay to retirees. But I think they must have managed the funds so well that there are surpluses. The same is not true of annuity. An annuity guarantees about, I think, 10 years now. But you can pay a person until he's 120 years old, until death. That's it. Of course, if he dies anytime before 10 years, it then means those whatever remains will be given to his estate. So I think what PENCOM specifically is saying about plan program withdrawal is that they are going to increase the payment. Maybe there are surpluses in the investment because that one has no mortality element.
We have been speaking with Oluwatoyin Eleoramo, Executive Chairman, Platinum Anchorage, on the very beginnings of pension in Nigeria. And this is Pension Affairs. We'll return shortly. Stay with us. This is Pension Affairs, and today we have been speaking on the very beginnings of the Nigerian pension system, the reforms, and where it leaves the typical Nigerian worker. But what retirement choices are available to the Nigerian workforce? Do we know about these choices, and are we maximizing the choices? These and much more will constitute our conversations in the next edition of the program. In the meantime, you can join conversations on our social media platforms. I am Agada Mba Margaret, and until we do return, know that it is not too early to begin saving for your retirement.